At exactly 8:17 a.m., the entire world stopped. Not slowed down, not paused, stopped. A pigeon froze in the middle of the sky. Raindrops hung motionless above the street. A little girl stood frozen, smiling at an ice cream she would never get to eat. Cars stopped exactly where they were. People were trapped in the middle of conversations. Even the wind disappeared, but one person kept walking. At first, he thought it was a joke, maybe a flash mob, maybe a movie set. He waved his hand in front of a man's face. Nothing, he shouted. No response. He touched the man's shoulder. It felt warm. His heart wasn't beating. His chest wasn't moving, but he didn't feel dead. He felt paused. Then he looked up. The clouds hadn't moved an inch. A plane was frozen high above the city. It wasn't falling. It wasn't flying. It was simply stuck. That's when he realized something impossible. Time itself had stopped. For everyone except him. The first hour felt exciting. He walked through empty streets, opened abandoned cars, walked into expensive stores. Nobody stopped him. Nobody even noticed. It felt like the entire world had become his playground. He climbed onto rooftops, sat in the middle of highways, walked across airport runways. For the first time in history, there were no rules, no traffic, no deadlines, no consequences. He even walked into a bank vault. The giant metal doors stood open because time had frozen while employees were moving them. Stacks of cash filled the room, gold bars, diamonds. It didn't matter. Money only has value if someone else exists to trade with. For the first time, money was completely worthless. By what felt like the second day, something strange happened. He became hungry, very hungry. Luckily, food still worked. A frozen pizza could still be baked. Water still flowed from the pipes. Electricity still worked. Power plants had frozen exactly as they were. Machines continued doing the same thing forever. The lights never flickered. The internet was gone. No websites loaded. No messages arrived. Every server had frozen at the exact same millisecond. The entire internet had become one giant screenshot. Days passed, or maybe weeks. It became impossible to tell. Every clock showed the exact same time, 8:17, forever, without other people. Time stopped meaning anything. He slept whenever he felt tired. He ate whenever he felt hungry. Morning and night became meaningless. The sun never moved. It stayed in exactly the same place. The shadows never changed. The world had become one endless afternoon. At first, that sounded amazing. Imagine never having to rush again. No school, no work, no responsibilities, just freedom, unlimited freedom. But freedom has a strange side effect. Without limits, it slowly becomes prison. He explored everything: museums, airports, shopping malls, movie theaters, sports stadiums, entire cities. He drove every supercar he could find, flew helicopters that never left the ground because the air itself refused to move, walked onto frozen cruise ships, swam in oceans that looked like glass. Every wave stood perfectly still. Fish floated motionless underwater. It was beautiful and terrifying. Then the silence started getting louder. No birds, no footsteps except his own. No voices, no laughter, no music, nothing. The quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was overwhelming. Sometimes he started talking to himself just to hear another voice. Eventually, he answered himself too. Months passed. At least, he thought they did. His beard grew. His hair became longer. He started leaving notes for himself around the city. Not because he forgot where things were, because he wanted proof that yesterday had actually happened. One morning, he found a note he didn't remember writing. It simply said, "Don't trust the reflections." He laughed. He assumed he had written it while exhausted, until he looked into a mirror. For just a split second, his reflection didn't copy him. It smiled, a fraction of a second too late. He stared at the mirror. Maybe he was tired. Maybe months of complete isolation were finally breaking his mind. He reached toward the glass. The reflection reached too. Everything looked normal again. He laughed, but he never completely forgot what he had seen. From that moment on, every mirror felt different. Sometimes he avoided looking into them altogether. Eventually, he stopped exploring. There was nothing left to discover. He had walked through thousands of homes, driven thousands of cars, visited places that no human had ever seen: military bunkers, government buildings, hidden laboratories, the top floor of the tallest skyscrapers on Earth. Everywhere, the world looked exactly the same, frozen, waiting, as if it were expecting something or someone. Then one day, he heard a sound, a single footstep, not his own. He froze. For the first time since the world had stopped, something else had moved. Another step. Slow, deliberate, echoing through an empty subway station. He called out, "Hello?" No answer, only silence. Then another footstep. Closer. He ran toward the sound, but every time he turned a corner, there was nobody there. Only endless frozen people, standing exactly where time had left them. Days later, he heard it again. This time, behind him. He spun around. Nothing, except one frozen woman. Her eyes were looking directly at him. He could have sworn they hadn't been before. He stepped closer. Her expression never changed. He reached out to touch her hand. The moment his fingers touched hers, everything shook, just once, like the entire world had taken a breath. Then, silence again. From that day forward, it happened more often. A frozen bird appeared on a different branch. A car that had been facing east was suddenly facing west. A coffee cup moved a few inches overnight. Tiny changes, impossible changes, as if someone else was walking through the frozen world while he slept. He stopped sleeping. He couldn't risk missing whoever it was. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. His thoughts became slower. The silence became louder. He wasn't afraid of being alone anymore. He was afraid he wasn't. Then he finally saw them. A man walking calmly through the city, just like him. Not frozen, not surprised, just walking. He ran toward him, shouting, waving. The man looked up, smiled, and kept walking as if he had seen this happen before. When he finally caught up, he asked the only question that mattered. "How long have you been here?" The stranger thought for a moment, then quietly answered, "I don't remember." "You mean a few years?" The man smiled again. "I don't remember what years are." He explained something impossible. There wasn't just one person living outside frozen time. There were others, scattered across the world. Some had been searching for decades. Others had completely given up. Most never found each other. The world was simply too big. Then the stranger said something even worse. "This isn't the first frozen world." "What do you mean?" "I've lived through this before." The words didn't make sense. Time eventually starts moving again. Relief flooded through him until the stranger finished the sentence. "For everyone except us." When time starts again, people continue exactly where they left off. They never realize anything happened. But we stay outside. They can see us, but they can't understand us. We become strangers. You can never go home. You can never explain where you've been. You never grow old with the people you love. You only watch. And eventually, time freezes again. Why? The stranger looked toward the frozen sky. "I don't think time is broken. I think it's choosing." "Choosing who?" He never got an answer, because at that exact moment, the wind moved for the first time. A bird finished its flight. The rain finally hit the ground. Cars accelerated. People continued speaking in the middle of unfinished sentences. The entire world came back to life. Exactly 1 second later, nobody screamed. Nobody noticed. To everyone else, nothing had happened. He smiled. It was finally over. He ran toward the nearest person, but they walked straight through him. Not physically, they simply didn't acknowledge him. It was as if he wasn't there. He looked down at his own hands. They were still moving, but something felt different. Across the street, the stranger watched him without saying a word. Then he turned around and disappeared into the crowd. Nobody noticed him either. That's when he finally understood. Time hadn't frozen to trap him. It had removed him. He wasn't waiting for the world to come back. The world had moved on without him. And somewhere, right now, at exactly 8:17 a.m., And someone else is looking around in confusion, wondering why the entire world has suddenly stopped.